Adelaide United are in a civil war, with two factions severely opposed as to the direction of the club. It got so bad that two of the most powerful people in the club, technical director Ernst Faber and head coach Carl Viet, wouldn't even acknowledge each other. And now one of them is without a job. What caused all this? Why did it explode so violently? And why, as we'll show you in this video, did 4 former Adelaide United players feel the need to speak out in public? But first, a little bit of context. In 24-25, the Reds had one of the most up and down seasons in A-League history. In their first 12 games, they won 8, going at 2.25 points per game. In the remaining 14, they won just 2, at 0.79 points per game. All throughout this remarkable downfall, the questions were being asked. What has changed? What are the reasons behind this record-breaking fall-off? Fingers were pointed at the leaky defence, and rightfully so. Adelaide set a new record for the most goals conceded for an A-League team making the final series. But there were hints at something a little bit deeper below the surface. This is Carl Viet in his final press conference of the regular season after a 1-1 draw against Melbourne City that looked like perhaps it would have been his last game in charge. Watch his face as he's asked about the reasons for Adelaide United's fall-off in the second half of the season.
How tough has the second half of the season been? And can you sort of pinpoint what sort of things have led to, I guess, you fall down the ladder from such a high spot?
Not exactly subtle, he responded.
Yeah, there was a few things that have gone on behind the scenes that, have distracted the players. It didn't help with some of the things that did happen. And you can only have to look at the performance of the players, how they dropped off. That's, I know the reasons why, and maybe one day they'll come out.
That day has arrived for at least some of what went on behind the scenes at Adelaide United this season. Viet clearly had things on his mind, but didn't want to draw the feud out into the public sphere. But that all changed when the first former Adelaide United player spoke up, Travis Dodd.
In an explosive interview with 7 News, Adelaide United assistant Travis Dodd says the club's longest-serving coach, Carl Viet, was undermined by technical director Ernst Faber.
He's had a secret meeting just with the leadership group and told the players that they can pick the team for the next 3 weeks. Thankfully, the playing group had the resolve and the respect for Carl to tell Ernest that they weren't interested in doing that.
Dodd says the Dutchman also forced failed import Ryan Tunnicliffe to train away from the playing group, putting him through torturous running sessions in the hope he'd quit the club.
A secret player meeting and trying to force someone out of the club. Big claims.
Travis is one of those people where you have to listen to what he says when it's to do with Adelaide United. In a city and a football community as small as it is in Adelaide, he's somebody, his word holds a lot of weight, much like Carl Viet, much like somebody like an Aurelio Vidmar or an Aloisi or whatever, right? There's an Alagich, there's these families that just sort of are pervasive within South Australian football, and when they talk, you listen.
The second player to speak up, Joshua Cavallo. Cavallo posted in the comments section of that Channel 7 interview with Dodd. His claim was that Faber had instructed Viet that Cavallo was not to be used throughout the entirety of the A-League season, a fact that Viet himself only told Cavallo about with 3 games to go in the season. At this point in the story though, it's worth talking about what the role of a technical director actually is, and it's all tied to what the long-term vision of a football club should be. Some clubs don't have them, but the ones that do are participating in a worldwide football trend that is considering coaches in a much more disposable way, kind of like players. Some owners or board of directors, depending on the structure of the club, will hire a coach and entrust them to instill a philosophy and culture of their own design on that club. But what happens when a coach then moves on for whatever reason? Coaches rarely last more than 3 or 4 years at one club nowadays. The technical director or director of football, whatever you want to call it, is designed to protect against that short-term instability. Instead, the power brokers of a club will decide on that culture and philosophy themselves and will hire a technical director with a much longer time frame in mind to instill those beliefs. And part of that job is hiring a coach that fits that vision and aligns with your beliefs that you've already decided.
They're almost treating coaches like players now, in a way, in that they're kind of this disposable thing that they can do. They pick a coach that fits the system that they want rather than giving a coach the freedom to implement a system, if that makes sense.
Take this interview from Sydney FC CEO Mark Aubrey and listen to how he talks about the 4-point review process that was done before extending head coach Ufuk Talay.
First is our results across all competitions. The second is the execution of our football philosophy, including our formations and tactics. The third is an assessment of our recruitment and youth development and the progression of that. And the fourth is our team management, culture and group dynamics in general.
Formation, tactics, youth pathways, even culture. These are all things that are now set at the board level. From Faber's perspective at Adelaide, he's been given a directive. Now, what that is exactly, we don't quite know. But according to a follow-up report from Channel 10, the club has said that his hard-nosed approach isn't going anywhere and he's simply holding players to a higher standard. It's worth noting Faber's cultural influence and background as well. He comes from an extremely successful club in PSV, which is widely regarded as one of the best youth pathways in the world. And perhaps that culture clash is where a lot of the public outcry is coming from. Tunnicliffe being made to do individual sessions and pushed out of the club. Cavallo not being utilised and removed from future plans. These things are not uncommon in European football. Even going behind the back of a coach and meeting with the players to get their input on team selection. Not as common, granted, but not completely unprecedented. One thing that Faber probably wasn't 100% tuned into when he got this job was the Australian sporting culture. Relative to the rest of the world, there is a comparatively heightened importance on winning the right way, not just winning at all. The Australian government literally wrote this into the Sport 2030 policy, a document created in collaboration with Sport Australia. Their vision statement reads, "Australia is the world's most active, healthy sporting nation, known for its integrity and excellence." Integrity and excellence. Winning the right way is right up there alongside winning at all. And this is fairly embedded in Australian culture. It's one of the reasons why Aussie supporters are so much more resistant to diving and simulation in football. Where, for example, Argentinians consider deceiving a referee to be a skill that earns you a competitive advantage, Australians see it as cheating. It's not winning the right way. And neither is forcing Ryan Tunnicliffe to 2 weeks of running. But there is an argument to say that, competitively at least, this is holding Australians back. If you get clipped in the box and you don't go down, you're not getting a penalty, and that puts your team at a competitive disadvantage. Faber's techniques may be cutthroat, but perhaps it's a competitive advantage that will allow Adelaide United to have more success in the A-League. And this is a sentiment that was backed up by Nathan Kosmina, the Adelaide United CEO, in a further Channel 10 report.
Different players respond differently to different coaching techniques. We have those discussions often. Some like a firm handshake, some prefer softer discussion. That balance is always a tricky one.
However, these are not the only accusations made against Faber. As part of that original 10 News story, they reported that he held a meeting with players, staff and coaches, instructing them all to ridicule Carl Viet's coaching directly to his face. This is where the line almost unanimously seems to have been crossed.
But that one, for me, that's going way, way, way over the line.
The third player was the one at the centre of it all, Ryan Tunnicliffe. Speaking on X, he said, being separated from the playing group and made to train in isolation was not only deeply disappointing, it was disgraceful, and called it a targeted effort to pressure me out of the club. As for the so-called favourable end-of-year player survey referenced by the club, this claim is entirely fabricated, and noted that he's taking legal advice on the matter. Josh Cavallo also replied to Tunnicliffe's post. The narrative Adelaide United are putting forward isn't the truth. It's a cover-up to hide how we were treated behind closed doors. Most stayed silent, not because they were okay with it, but because they feared for their own survival at the club. The truth will come out soon enough. So it seems like this story isn't even completely over, and a fourth former player backs that up as well, Bruce Jitte.
Well, look, I've seen, some players say, look, that wasn't even the half of it. Hopefully those things are cleared up now, but it's disappointing a club legend got treated in that way.
Not even the half of it. Wow. We may or may not figure out what else happens during this Adelaide United season, But there is another layer to this story. Beyond just being an Australian football club with all the relevant cultural points attached, Adelaide position themselves as the People's Club. On their website, they say, Adelaide United's core values are ambition, loyalty, integrity, respect, and transparency. That clearly has not happened here. And at the absolute best, the People's Club hasn't treated its people very well. This is a sliding doors moment for the Adelaide United Football Club. They have to decide what they stand for, and fast. For now, Hindmarsh Stadium on a Friday night is still appointment viewing. But if the last 5 years of the A-League have taught us anything, you have to do absolutely everything in your power to keep the trust of your supporters. Australians love football, but time and time again, their resolve has been tested. Do not be the straw that broke the camel's back. And for Adelaide United, they're running a very fine line. If you've been watching the Club World Cup, then you probably will be a little bit confused as to why Auckland City, an amateur team from New Zealand, is playing in the competition instead of Auckland FC, the reigning A-League premiers. Well, if you want to know why that is, this video is a pretty good place to start. And for more football stories from this part of the world, subscribe. Thanks for watching.